folks, I've been still talking about the Montgomery Brawl that took place on August 5th. Well, a couple of professors have put together a curriculum surrounding the brawl. That's right. Joining us on the show right now, which of course is quite interesting, if you will, because you talk about, man, an actual curriculum surrounding this. Please welcome to the show for our Education Matters segment. Right now, Dr. Linda Holloway, Associate Professor of Counseling, Alabama State University. Dr. April Berry, Adjunct Professor, University of South Alabama. All right, glad to have you. So whose idea was this?
It was collectively, but I would say I initiated it.
Okay, and so you initiated, and so, but why? What was it about this where you said, you know what, we can actually teach around this?
There were a multitude of reasons as to why. There's not one single reason, because as an academician, when I approach something in a counselor educator, it's from the perspective of how can I use this in my classroom? So we want to build students so that they have critical thinking skills. And we did not want them to walk away after all of the TikToks, after all of the laughter and all of that to just simply, that's it. But to have a conversation around the historical psychological aspect of this. For example, you see the guy, he's at work. So let's talk about, because I teach career counseling, let's talk about violence in the workplace. But violence in the workplace against a Black male or Black people, that did not start on August 5th. And so with having those questions and creating a safe place in the classroom will allow students to have those kind of intellectual stimulating conversations.
So how has this been received?
Very well, because one of the things that we try to do is have it in such a way that is user-friendly. You can select those questions that are most appropriate to you, and if you want to change and modify. Give you an example. I had a faculty member from Tougaloo University, Dr. Wendy White, to call me. She teaches a class on race, ethnic, and medical, and she wanted to use some of those questions as discussion questions from a medical perspective.
April?
Yes, I would say so. It's been received really well. Also, one of the things that we really wanted to do was to allow for everyone to have a voice in critical discussions such as this. I think a lot of times we in the moment can have our own personal reactions, our own personal reflections, but how often is it when we can all come together in prospective places and have these more critical dialogues? And so specifically for my role as the clinical director who supervises other mental health professionals, I wanted to make sure that our clinicians were able to have safe spaces among the staff to talk about these issues, but also the clients that we serve who are coming in who may have mental health challenges, who've experienced microaggressions and different oppressions, that our clinicians are prepared to talk about these issues and create that safe space for our clients.
And for the both of you, April, I'll start with you. Were y'all even surprised at the visceral reaction, how people responded with such glee to what took place?
I would say that I was a bit surprised, just because I feel like, oftentimes these issues are going on in our society and, people are always talking about them. So I didn't expect such, reaction to the curriculum. But then at the same time, Dr. Holloway and I are both creative and innovative in how we approach different topics. And so I really felt that our creativity and our innovation around this curriculum could potentially spark some great dialogue and people talking about it. So in that regard, I think that I wasn't surprised, but initially, just trying to get something out there, especially around such topics as this, I was, trying to figure out, is this going to be something that takes off? And indeed it did.
Linda?
I would add to that the incident itself, in terms of being shocked surprised being that I am actually here in Montgomery, Alabama, working at the Alabama State University. I was indeed surprised because oftentimes when these events happen, people are just standing around just using their cameras and we post it and then we move on to something else. But this really was a moment in time that people collectively came together and said, no more. But it has happened, in other areas. But ideally, the surprise was it's broad daylight. You got the numbers of people out there and just seeing white privilege on display. Because oftentimes when these things happen, we share them and they said, oh, that was back in 1619. That was a long time ago. That this does not happen today. And so to see it happen right there in front of our eyes, and it was not somewhere like a Trayvon Martin, where the person is isolated, running while Black, or any of those things, that they could collectively come together to support their coworker.
All right, questions from the panel. Michael, you first.
All right, sister professors, thanks for coming on, sharing this information with us. How do you connect history in discourse with what we saw on August 5th? We know Alabama's a former Confederate state. You have the Alabama State Constitution in 1901 and imposed poll taxes and literacy tests and codified segregation and codified white supremacy in their state constitution, as well as the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. So how do you connect history to what we saw take place August 5th?
April, Dr. Berry, it's on me. Okay, so how I connect history is, if you think about where did this incident happen? It happened at a place where slaves were actually brought in. So I'm connecting history right there in the moment, right there. Okay, what are some other things that have occurred historically? So one of our questions deal with the summer of 1919. A lot of people don't know about that summer. It's called the Hot Summer.
The Red Summer.
So the Red Summer, yes. The Red Hot Summer, thank you. And so you have this young male, Black male, who's 14, who is out swimming. There's really no line of demarcation that say Black or white swim, but he drowned. And after that, there's a lot of rioting. So we're connected. Okay, another aspect would be a lot of people we were really rooting for the young man when he swam the cross and everything. But what is really, we want to peel back the layer. Why is it that Black people cannot swim? So we have a video in there that actually talks about that, because there's time when Blacks are swimming, they throw acid in the pool. So there's a lot of history around that. But I know you talked about specifically just Alabama history, but we look at it from a more global perspective. But if there's something to be related specifically about Alabama, then obviously it will come out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Xavier?
Dr. Holloway, Dr. Berry, thank you for your contribution to a conversation. I think that one of the interesting questions that was on your guide was about African Americans generally felt it as a collective community pride about what happened, and asking why did Black people feel a sense of pride in that? What made you? First and foremost, I ask your connection to the pride in that sense, and your experience with that, and gathering that information to show that African Americans did show a sense of pride in that. And why do you feel that overwhelming pride seemingly didn't get as much pushback as other racial incidents that go viral and memes shared about the conversations themselves?
That's a great question. I think for me, when I look at the Black pride here, I feel like, as a collective, when Black people come together, we see that there is strength in numbers. I mean, that dates back to our history. We talk about Alabama's history. We talk about, the Montgomery bus boycott and all of these different things. When Black people came together, that signaled a message. And so I think for me, I really value the fact that we can come together, though we may not do it as often as we should. And it takes incidents like this for that to happen. But yet when we do come together, it shows shows our collective strength. And I think that that was definitely on display in this particular incident, where everybody is sitting here looking at someone who is being attacked on their job, who's just doing their job, and how we were able to come together in that moment and say, hey, we are not going to stand here and allow for violence to happen when this person didn't do anything at all. And we wanted to show the world that there is strength, again, in our numbers.
All right, then. Well, first of all, good luck with this. First of all, how many students are participating?
Well, I teach a class in counseling diverse population. So that class usually run anywhere from 15 to 20 some students in that class. So that's my introduction to that and using that for that purposes.
And I teach cultural competency, usually somewhere around 30 undergrad students.
All right. Well, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Xavier, Michael, thanks for joining us as well today.